Hi, my name is Deb Casey and I am the president of Warwick Community College. Go Finns! I'm excited to join all of you as the new cohort of the Chief Student Affairs Leadership Institute. And it is my pleasure to share a little bit about my journey with all of you in regards to leadership and to also give you what I would say a few words of wisdom. I started my journey actually in housing undergraduate, and I was a resident assistant. And at that time, I also was involved in student government, and it really helped me think about what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was a biology major undergraduate, I was a first-generation college student, and I spent most of my time working on the weekends at the hospital and in the hematology lab. And while I was doing my undergraduate work, I was really interested in organizational theory and what was happening at the undergraduate level. So when I finished my undergraduate degrees, I decided to move to graduate school, and I was excited to become a resident director in housing. And I had visioned I would finish my master's work and hopefully become a director of housing somewhere across the country. So in my philosophy, I believe that if you want to be the best, surround yourself with the best. And the guru of housing industry in higher education was Jim Grimm, and he was at the University of Florida. Also, I knew that student affairs was an area that I was very interested in, and at the University of Florida, the father of student affairs, Dr. Art Sandeen, was there. So if you want to be the best, surround yourself with the best. So I worked really hard to find a position working for Jim Grimm in housing at the University of Florida, took that job and had a beautiful experience there. While I was there, the Dean of Students at the university invited me to move over to the Dean of Students office and become the Assistant Dean for Disability Support Services. At that time, I didn't know much about working with students with disabilities, but I was intrigued by the position. And so I interviewed. It was probably the hardest interview I ever had with students because they were trying to understand why I'd be interested in that position because I had not worked with students with disabilities before. And I promised them if I was in the position that I would work very closely with them to learn the work that was needed, the equity work necessary to achieve success for them and with them. And so I took the job. I worked alongside them, and the University of Washington had a great program called Do It, Disability, Opportunity, Internetworking, and Technology. And it was looking at ways that we could work with faculty and how they could accommodate students with disabilities. So for many years, I worked as the assistant dean, then dean, and very much involved with the University of Washington on creating pedagogy and ways that we could help faculty in the classroom serve students with disabilities. It was probably really my first time looking at work with an equity lens and how we serve students, but it was a powerful reminder of how important it is for us to make sure the voices of our students are heard. As you can see, I grew up in student affairs just like all of you are doing, and it means so much that we make sure that our students feel like they belong, that they have sense of place, and that they feel like they can achieve their goals. And when they need us, we can provide wraparound support to them to be successful. So after my journey there, I decided to move on to Washington State. I was recruited and I became a vice president of student affairs. And I served in that capacity for 17 years at Green River Community College. It was a wonderful institution. I did so much work there that helped me truly understand what our students need. We at Green River participated actively in a number of national initiatives, guided pathways work, achieving the dream work, and we were really embedded in the work that we needed to do to serve our local communities and our workforce. And so I had 4 presidents while I served at that capacity. I had a long-standing 30-year president, I had a 5-year president, a 1-year interim president, and then a 6-year president. Each of them brought different strengths to the organization, different ways of leading, and I learned a lot about leadership through them and with them in my tenure. At some point while I was at Green River, I also served as the interim vice president of instruction, as well as the interim vice president of human resources. It just gave me the opportunity to look at things differently and to see how organizational structure creates itself. What I would say to all of you is, when you're thinking about the organization you're currently in as leaders, or the organizations that you aspire to be a part of, you want to know what their mission, vision, and values are. You truly want to understand that organization. And do your values align with the organization that you want to work in, or that you're currently working in? What is the climate and the culture of that organization, and what role do you play in the success of meeting the mission and the vision? I think there's 4 components to any organization that, as leaders, we have to constantly keep at the forefront of our vision ourselves. One is, what is the structure of the organization? Is it an open organization? Is it a closed organization? What role does that structure play in moving you forward, in successfully accomplishing what you set out to do, in achieving those goals and looking at your strategic planning process? In addition, you need to know who the organization people are. What's the human capital, and how does the human capital navigate the structure of that organization? And I think when we talk about humans and we talk about who our people are, we need to think about, how do they create that culture? What are the beliefs, the values that they instill and bring to the organization, and how does the organization inform them about what the values and the culture is of that organization? So structure, the people, there's politics in every organization. Who are the allies? Who are the champions? Who are the disruptors? Who are the people in the organization that, when you think about that bell curve, you have the naysayers, and then you have on the other side of that bell curve those that are on board with you every time. And then you have the middle of that bell curve, that those are the people that you can influence in one direction or the other, or the politics will influence people in one direction or the other. So thinking through the organization from that perspective and the politics of that, and what are the symbolic activities that represent and then reflect the culture of that organization. So any organization, if you think through the structure, the human capital, the politics, and the symbolic activities and events that occur, that will help you better understand, hey, is this my organization where I'm leading? What are the things that I can do to contribute to any one of those parts of the organization? Or where are those barriers within that organization that impact people with that equity lens as a leader that you bring to that conversation to help make change in regards to culture? Myself personally, I lead with my own personal values, and I actively every day listen to people within my organization and in my community. I try very hard when I'm listening to them to also think about and ask really good questions. So as a leader, I can understand where people are coming from. And so I'm informed by both listening and asking questions. And then from there, I think it's important to think about, how do I reflect before I make a decision or take action? And not everybody's going to support maybe that action or that decision you make, but have you listened to them? Can you articulate what you've heard from them? And can you also then from there be able to tell them the why of the decision of what you are doing and where you are headed alongside them? So as leaders, I think that's really important for you to think about and to be reflective always. So I want to just highlight Achieving the Dream is a national nonprofit organization. They're dedicated to helping students and student learning outcomes. And I believe strongly in student affairs. We are a part of making sure we are meeting our institution's student learning outcomes. How do we do that? We do that by clearly making sure that we are data informed and we create and make decisions based on the data that is put in front of us. We want to always be thinking about equity and inclusion. And when I'm talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, I'm truly talking about diversity. Who are our people? What are the demographics of your organization? Who are your students that you are serving? Who are the faculty and staff, and do they represent that community? Who in the community in regards to the demographics do you have relationships with and you are building those relationships with? And then when I'm thinking about equity as a leader, and you as leaders, I hope you are intentionally and thoughtfully thinking about what are the barriers to our students and their success, or our employees, and what policies and procedures have we put in place that impact equity for everyone in that organization. Truly, when you break down those barriers and you can find that equity work has helped you, you will be an inclusive organization. So I think those are significant things as leaders we need to be thinking about in regards to our DEI work and in regards to looking with an equity lens at our work. Always a student-centered approach. I consistently say to students when I walk through campus, why did you choose Warwick Community College? If you chose Warwick, tell us a little bit about who made an impact on you. If you feel like you belong here, tell me how you belong here. And I think if we consistently put students at the center of our decision making, we'll make the right decisions. We need their voices at the table. We need them to be heard. We need them to inform us through policy and procedures that we are putting in place, what's working and what's not working for them, and hear their voices. And then we make what I would call those continuous improvement decisions. We think thoughtfully about how we can make change and do those things. And we want to do that in partnership and collaboration with others. As a leader, you cannot just say I'm leading and you look behind you and see who's following you. Today's leadership is truly about when you look to your left and you look to your right, who's alongside you leading. And how you do that is through collaboration and partnerships, and again, reflective learning and making sure that everybody had some type of input into the decisions we're making, knowing that if there is a decision that everyone's going to agree with, you make sure again, you go back and you explain the why to that. That's how you create, in my opinion, true leadership and institutional change. The number one question when you ask someone out there who's already in the role of a leader or a president, I think is, tell me about your institution and what have you learned about your institution and how has change occurred within that institution. Unless culture is in a good place, it's going to be really hard to make change. So I would recommend, if you're interested in a couple of books, I have one book here. It is Randy Wagner, he's a current president, and it's Competing on Culture, Driving Change in Community Colleges. It's a fabulous book, really insightful on culture and how as a leader can you change culture and make impact on that culture. And then two, a past president, if you know Valencia College, then you probably know Dr. Sandy Shugart. Leadership in the Crucible of Work. For me, this has been my institution, my go-to as a leader in regards to what is the most important thing that we can do as leaders in regards to our work. And I would recommend both of these books for your consideration. So I'm just going to finish up with saying a few things about you in this cohort that I hope you take away. One is continue to think about your leadership as visionary leadership. Leaders who can articulate that compelling vision and inspire people to come alongside you to create change, you will be successful in doing that. I want you to also consider, again, as I mentioned earlier, having that equity lens in regards to prioritizing equity, diversity, and inclusion, and how you can ensure that all students will be successful in helping achieve their goals comes from you as that leader. Teaching and learning is critical in the heart of our organizations. So how do we work alongside in student affairs, the relationship with instruction or academic affairs to create those partnerships that truly help the students learn outside of the classroom so they can be successful in the classroom? And I think that comes from collaboration in regards to teaching and learning. And how do we do that? Fostering that culture together is so important. I already talked about the structure of the organization. You need to know your organization and you need to make sure you are prepared to address and lead efforts around structures of the organization that impact students, but also structures that are necessary to build the infrastructure needed to help students succeed. always in regards to you as a leader, whether you are continuing in the student affairs area or you're going to journey to other areas of the college, making sure that you have external engagement and partnerships. I've served on so many boards when I was in student affairs, making sure the voices of our students and our college's mission and vision were told to the community. That is a vital role that I think we play in student affairs, is sitting at tables for boards and organizations and making sure that they know they have a role in contributing to student success and our student success agenda. And lastly, as leaders, and you're already doing it by being part of this institute, is continuing to professionally develop. I've had such great opportunity to participate in Workforce Dean's professional development opportunities. I've had opportunities to serve abroad, and I will be going abroad actually as a Fulbright scholar this fall, and thinking about ways that we could build study abroad between Warwick Community College and other international higher education institutions. I think thinking about what you can do if you want to be a future leader, maybe you want to be a future president. Are there state and national associations that you can become involved in? NASPA and ACPA are probably two in student affairs that you might be involved in. The American Association of Community Colleges has community college professional development opportunities that I think you should look at for mid-managers to vice presidents and then to presidents. I have thoughtfully been engaged for this past year with 30 other people aspiring to be presidents with the Aspen Fellowship Program. If that is your goal, I would highly encourage you to look at what the criteria is to become an Aspen Fellow in your future, and other ways that locally and nationally your voice can be heard and you can professionally become a leader with the most cutting-edge information on best practices in ways that you can impact culture on your campuses. I wish you all well this year in your cohort, and I look so forward to hopefully connecting with you in the state in our journeys together. Congratulations. Looking forward to meeting all of you someday in the near future. Go Finns!